What's up, Flannelverse? It is week 11, Thursday night football. We've got the Patriots and the Jets playing tonight. Kind of a messy game. A lot of new players in new situations that we have not seen yet before. But we're going to do our best to break down what we think is going to happen in this game. I'm here as usual with Adam, ShipMyMoney, Scherer. We're going to be going position by position, starting with quarterbacks, then running backs, receivers, tight ends. Talk about defenses and kickers. And see what the sims are giving us as of right now. Adam, do you think this is a slate that you're likely to be adjusting the sim throughout the day, or do you have a pretty good read on the slate?
Probably tweaking a little bit, and then also we don't know for sure if there's going to be relevant inactives, particularly for the Jets with those wide receivers. But also I've already spent a decent amount of time on it.
Yeah, it seems like it's pretty likely, right, that one of those Jets receivers is going to be inactive. Like
I would
like
think
6
so.
of them. Yeah.
Like they had both Lazard and Mitchell inactive last week, and then now obviously Wilson's out, so I assume at least one of them is active. But if one of them were to remain inactive, it would clear up a decent amount of stuff.
Yeah, it would make things a bit easier. Yeah, true. Well, we will start at the quarterback position. Actually, overview. I guess we should just say. So I don't know what you make of this Jets defense. I last week, one of my biggest takes was that I wanted to play Quinshad Judkins against the Jets defense because they had just traded Quinnen Williams, who was their best run stuffer, and Sauce Gardner, who was their best cornerback, who I think is also good in the run defense. So I thought teams should be able to run all over the Jets. And I still kind of think that that's true. I think that just last week they were playing the Browns and Dylan Gabriel. So they were able to scheme better for that Browns team and against good teams. I suspect this is going to be a really bad defense, but do you kind of read it the same way, or do you think that they might be better than I'm giving credit for?
Yeah, I mean, I think at worst they should be worse than they were earlier in the year. Like you lost two,
which was already pretty bad. Yeah, right. And they also have a few players that are good. A defensive tackle is out for this game, or is questionable, but likely to miss this game. They have another safety who is the third on the team in tackles on the season, is on injured reserve now. Like they have so many potential injuries on defense that it seems like a spot that we should be able to attack the Patriots offense, or attack the defense with the Patriots offense. But yeah, I guess we can get into it. Starting with, I guess, Justin Fields is projected for 42% flex ownership, 14% captain ownership at 9,400. I have not run the sims yet, Adam. My instinct is that I'm going to want to be underweight to Justin Fields. Is that what you're seeing in the sims, though?
No, I'm getting entirely too much of him and May. From just kind of like an overall standpoint, at least with what I'm getting to right now, it's a lot of attacking the offenses and expecting the field to be heavy, especially on the Patriots defense. So you get kind of a compounding factor where there's not a lot of highly projected guys on the slate because one of the teams playing is the Jets. You have a relatively inexpensive price tag on a rushing quarterback in Fields at 9,400. And then you also get some negative correlation with what the field is likely to do. So I think all of those things are really pushing Fields into lineups, which I don't love because he is Justin Fields. But I ran it with him projected for 42% ownership at flex, 9 at captain. And I got over that at flex. I got to 62%, and I got 2x at captain at 18%. I'm really heavy on both quarterbacks right now. Obviously, I'm fine with that on Drake May more so than Fields. But there are at least, reasons why I would want to be on Fields. Like he is somebody that will run. He does have that negative correlation with the field. So it's just a tricky slate where there have been times this year where I'm heavy on the quarterbacks and, it's pass first quarterbacks and guys that I don't really want to be that heavy on because there's a lot of other good plays. Here it's more, I don't really want to be that heavy on him just because I don't want to be that heavy on any of the Jets, but neither does anybody else. And so this just kind of sets up as one of those slates where it's always difficult to talk about single game slates where there's just such an obvious expectation for how the game's going to go. Like everybody assumes that the Patriots are just going to limit the Jets scoring. They're going to score a bunch of points. They're 13-point favorites. That's probably how the game will go, but that's also how everybody's going to play it. And so as a result, it does just kind of get more Justin Fields into my lineups.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think these are what I always seem to do in these spots. And I think most of the pros, or a lot of pros, you'll see playing that angle of just like, well, what if we did like play the whole game as though the Jets are going to be better than people expect, play a lot of Justin Fields. I think that's what sims give people, and I get that. And I kind of wonder if I should be just leaning into the sims more than I do. To me, I don't think I'm going to play a lot of Justin Fields because I do think that there are enough other angles that I kind of like as ways to get different. So I suspect I'll end up putting my thumb on the scale, getting underweight on Justin Fields. But like also he's always been inconsistent, which is obviously bad a lot of the time, and it's the reason that the field doesn't want to play him. But like he does have spike weeks here and there. He's capable of rushing for 100 yards in a game. I don't know if he's actually done that, but like I think he has the ability.
He definitely has that, some like with the Bears
In his career. Yeah. I don't think he's done it with the Jets, but maybe yes. But regardless, we know that he's capable of rushing for like 100 yards. And 100 yards and a touch, like you're basically there already as a quarterback at 9,400 at any kind of passing involvement. So I get it. I probably should be more interested in playing Justin Fields than I am, just given that he is such a dual threat quarterback. This to me, I'm sort of surprised by how much ownership he's getting, like 56%. Like I would love him if he was getting 34% total ownership. This to me is like, man, I feel like I can get away from that and find different ways to get different. But it's interesting that the sims still like him at 56% ownership. How much of that you say you're getting at captain?
18.
Okay. So you're overweight there too.
And the thing is, like, the second part, like to what you're saying, where, like Justin Fields is getting a lot of ownership, you think you can like find somewhere else to go. He's the 5th most expensive player on the slate, and everywhere else that you're going to want to go as far as like highly projected players, they're getting a lot of ownership too. I mean, Breece Hall probably getting like 40% combined. May is probably getting like 70 to 80%. Henderson's going to get like 60 to 70%. So Diggs probably coming in at like 45, 50%. Like Fields, of the 5 highest projected guys on the slate, like he's going to be either the lowest owned or the second lowest owned, even though the raw numbers are high. And I do think you made a good point about Fields. Like this isn't necessarily, obviously people have their opinions on Fields as an NFL quarterback, but from a DFS standpoint, this is not like, it's a showdown slate. The Jets have some completely inept quarterback where it would be a fucking miracle if he scores 20 points, but it's a 1-game slate and anything can happen. So I'm going to play him anyway. Like we've had stretches of classic slates in Justin Fields' career where you cannot win if you don't have Justin Fields. Like he has that kind of upside. So that volatility that you mentioned, like, yes, there is the negative where he reasonably could score 6 points tonight, but like he can actually score 30 and you don't really say anything other than, oh, it was a Justin Fields game. Like if Justin Fields scores 30, nobody's going to be, sitting on Twitter like, holy shit, I can't believe Justin Fields scored 30 points. That'll never happen again. Or, that's never happened. Like it's firmly in what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, we've seen it many times with Justin Fields, so it shouldn't really shock anybody. Yeah, I guess a lot of time between now and the slate, but as of right now, I suspect I'll be underweight on Justin Fields because that's what I've written up in the things that I'm writing right now. So I have to stick to my guns and be underweight to Justin Fields. But mostly for me, the biggest reason that I'm going to be underweight, I think, to Justin Fields is that I love the pay up options on the Patriots so much for the reasons I was given. Just like I think that this could be just like Bengals level defense here on the Jets. Might not be, but that's kind of how I anticipate things are going to go with this Jets defense at some point, especially on a short week. I'm at least hopeful that they could be just really, really bad and the Patriots could be able to run all over them. But actually, before we get to the Patriot side, do you think somebody asked it in chat, and I think it's a good question. Any chance that Tyrod Taylor starts this game?
I mean, I'd be surprised, but
yeah,
like any chance meaning greater than 0. Like, yeah, they haven't announced a quarterback.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn is like very much like, I'm not going to tell you. Why would I tell you the quarterback is? So it is certainly possible, which I mean, to me, it's like, I think it's enough of a risk to actually like hurt my desire to play Fields. Like I think there might be a 5% chance that Tyrod Taylor starts this game.
Well, I mean, then you would just play Tyrod Taylor.
I mean, yeah. I mean, so would you have any interest in playing any Tyrod Taylor?
If he starts, yeah, he'd be the starting quarterback in a showdown slate.
If we don't get any kind of announcement, like, do you think we're going to be told who's the
starting quarterback? I think we're going to get a starting quarterback announcement.
Okay. All right, good. Well, then, yes, then I guess we'll know more. I'll know before the slate. After inactives come out, I'll be doing another show later on. But I mean, Aaron Glenn is like keeping it close to the chest. So I don't know. I guess you're probably right though. I don't know if they're required to announce a starter. Like they have to announce inactives, but I'm not sure that there's actually anything requiring coaches to announce a
Yeah, I'm not
starter.
sure.
But they
But yeah, I
haven't
mean,
last
he
week
did the
still.
same thing last week.
Yeah, and then they came out, people like reported on the day
Yeah.
of that Justin Fields is going to start. So I would guess that the NFL would be pretty upset if they didn't announce a starting quarterback because of all the gambling involved.
Right.
Yeah, so you're probably right that they probably will.
Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously, like, it just got mentioned in chat, like, there's obviously in-game benching risk, but, what about it? Like, what are you gonna do with that? If you wanna downgrade, like, Justin Fields' projection to say, you think that there's, like, a really high chance he gets benched in game, then I think that would be, like, a reasonable thing to do, but I don't think it, like, makes 9K Tyrod Taylor playable. Like, you would assume Fields would have to, like, get hurt or get benched in, like, the first quarter probably for you to want 9K Tyrod Taylor. Especially because it's not like Tyrod Taylor is, like, a great quarterback either.
Right.
So, like, yeah, I mean, I kinda just view it all as Justin Fields is very risky and has a very high ceiling, and whether that risk comes from him playing poorly, like the other thing is, if Justin Fields gets benched, he was playing poorly. So your Justin Fields stand or play or lineups, whatever, wasn't working anyway. It doesn't matter.
What's cool about Run the Sims, Adam, is if I want to see what would the Sim say about Justin Fields gets benched in the second quarter, I could give
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor 70% of the work, Justin Fields 30, maybe give Taylor 1% ownership or something. He's probably not even going to get that, and see if with 70% of the passing market share and 10% of the rushing, whatever it would the Sims like Tyrod Taylor? You can play around with that.
Yep.
With Run
Yeah,
the Sims, you
that's a
can
really
adjust
good
it.
point. Like, you actually can just, you know, what I'm looking at your screen, but we have what 24% rushing market share to Fields, like, make that 6 and make Tyrod Taylor 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
Take 80% of the passing market share and give it to Taylor and see what happens.
Yeah. All of that to say, if you want to get 50% off your first payment on any Run the Sims product, you can use promo code Neil. That's new as of last week. So if you've been thinking about trying out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 50% off your first payment on any NFL product at Run the Sims. Again, that's up from 10% last week. So pretty big discount this week. Second, or I guess third quarterback to discuss here, Drake May is 12,000. So pretty expensive. Projected for 51% flex ownership, 35% captain ownership. Yeah, I guess given these ownership numbers, I start to think, okay, maybe I do want to play some Fields if we're going to get this much on Drake May. But hard to really argue with it. He's been just awesome. It's a seemingly great matchup. How much you get into of Drake May?
Pretty much every lineup right now, which doesn't feel great, but also, like, clearly the highest owned guy on the slate, clearly the highest projected guy on the slate. The only player on the slate that we have projected above 20 points, and he's well over 20, and there's nobody else even close to 20 from a median projection standpoint. So he is the most expensive, but I think it's also warranted. He is getting a ton of ownership. Again, I think it's also warranted. He's a very good passer, obviously, but he also does run. 23% projected rushing market share there, has some, rushing touchdown equity or upside as well. So, you can, in the larger, as the tournaments that you're playing get larger, you can start to make the case of just, like, avoiding raw ownership more. But even with the very high ownership projections, when I ran it, I had him at, like, 58, 59 flex and almost 30 captain. So nearly 90% combined ownership, and he still came out in pretty much all of my lineups as well.
And then the other question with both quarterbacks, how are you stacking them? I would assume Fields you can play in your lineup unstacked, and that's going to happen quite a bit. I would think in lineups. I have not actually run the Sims yet, but my assumption is we're going to get a lot of Fields by himself in some of these lineups. But are you seeing that, and are you seeing it with Fields at captain at all?
Yeah, so Fields captain, I'm actually getting relatively Jets heavy lineups, which
Okay.
I think does make some sense.
Yeah.
But I do think, absolutely, like, at captain, if you wanted to play him naked, you could. You have to have a Jet in your lineup, and there is some chance that, I mean, even if, like, let's say you played the Patriots defense, like, if you played like I guess it's relatively unlikely, I guess, that, like, Fields captain and 5 Patriots works, but, like, it could.
Yeah.
But, like, even if you have, like, Patriots defense, a bunch of other Patriots players, like, there could, you can envision a scenario where, like, the Patriots score a good amount of points, it's spread out, Justin Fields does what he did against, I think it was Miami, where he's having a shitty game and then he just breaks
Dallas.
one for a 60-yard touchdown. And then suddenly, I mean, there was that game again. I don't remember who it was, but it was a showdown game, I think.
Oh, okay. We're
Maybe it
talking about
wasn't,
different
but
games. Yeah.
there was definitely one game where, like, whether it was showdown or not, Justin Fields was really popular. And into like the fourth quarter, you're sitting there like, oh, I'm under the field on Justin Fields. Like, this looks great. I'm in a really good spot. And then it's just one play, and oh, he just picked up 16 points on one play or whatever it was. Like, that kind of thing where the Patriots do dominate the game, but then Justin Fields is just like easily the highest scoring Jets player and also outscores half the Patriots is entirely possible.
Yeah, well within reason. There's a game against the Cowboys on the main slate where he was super chalky. Garrett Wilson was super chalky. Both of them were failing until the fourth quarter, and then they both got there.
That might
in
be the one
end.
that I was thinking about.
Yeah. And then Drake May. Are you playing any naked Drake May? Do you think?
Probably not. Like, he does run enough that I guess, if you wanted to, you could. Obviously, it's going to be relatively low owned, but it looks like my Drake May captain lineups at least are pretty, normally stacked or relatively heavily stacked. At flex, I think you can play him naked. Same kind of thing. Like, you kind of depending on like what your lineup looks like as well. I think the hardest part, the biggest argument against playing him naked at flex would probably just be like, what Jets, like, you want 5 Jets or something. I think that from like a standpoint of, can Drake May get there without bringing anybody truly with him? Like, absolutely. You can get, spread out offense. You can get him scoring rushing touchdowns, whatever. But I still would just assume that you're going to have him with Patriots because so many of the highest projected guys on the slate are from the same team.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's move on. Do you have anything else to say about quarterbacks?
No.
All right, running backs. We've got some strong options here. Breece Hall on the Jets. Actually, let's cover the Jets as a whole. So it's Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis, I think, are the only two that we need to consider playing here. Breece Hall is 10,200, projected for 36% flex ownership, 15% captain ownership. Isaiah Davis, 4,200, projected for 6% flex ownership, 0% captain ownership. How much are you playing of the Jets running backs?
I have 28% Breece right now. I have 13% Davis and then like 1% each at captain. So I'm not getting to as much Breece as I am Justin Fields. There is kind of similar ownership coming into Hall right now, like a little bit less at flex, coming in at around 32%, but similar 9 to 10% at captain. Do you think it's interesting the Patriots have allowed 3 rushing touchdowns this year? I believe is the number.
Wow.
It's definitely a low number going off the top of my head. So, again, not to say that like, obviously every matchup is different and the Jets are a team that are going to look to run a lot, et cetera. But the Patriots have not allowed rushing touchdowns this year. Hall is going to get a lot of opportunities. We have seen that, since Braylon Allen went down. It looked in kind of like those first couple of games, like you were going to get a little bit more of a split than expected with Isaiah Davis, but he has fallen off as far as his rushing workload goes. Last week for Breece Hall, you had 64% rushing market share, only 9% for Isaiah Davis. Prior to that, you were at 19 and 10 for Davis. So I expect you're getting somewhere in like the 10 to 12% carry range for Davis, somewhere in like the low to mid 60s for Breece Hall. Certainly should have a lot of opportunities, obviously involved as a pass catcher as well. Not the best matchup, obviously. So I'm getting to him, but a little bit less than the field.
Okay. And then do you say you're getting to any Isaiah Davis?
Yeah, I have like 13% Isaiah Davis, 1% at captain. He's cheap. He runs routes, 39 or 38% route participation last week, 39 and 47 in the 2 weeks before that. So he is out there, with the opportunity to catch a pass here or there. He is cheap. There are plenty of, good or playable cheap options on this slate, and a lot of them are less expensive than him, but only projected for about 8% flex ownership. You do also kind of have like backdoor outs on him as well, where if this game does get out of hand, I assume the Jets are not going to just run Breece Hall 30 times in like a 25-point game or something. I don't think it would be surprising at all if down the stretch, like in the fourth quarter, Isaiah Davis is just getting carries. So like something like that could certainly happen as well.
Yeah, I like that call with Isaiah Davis. He's somebody that, yeah, again, like you said, I always kind of like these backup running backs. Obviously, I like him a lot better at 2,200 than 4,200. It's a tough price tag, but
Yeah.
I'll always love the contingent upside, the multiple paths to contingent upside, especially. And then, like you said, he does have some pretty good role over the past 3 weeks, 12 carries, so 4 carries per game, plus 3 targets per game, and running 39% of routes. Which you'd think if he's running a lot of routes, he's going to be involved if they get behind. So a lot of paths there for Isaiah Davis. Um, on the Patriot side, we don't know who's going to be active. I guess we know Ramondre is out. I guess Terrell Jennings is still up in the air. I guess I'm assuming that he's going to be in, and that seems to be the assumption we're making here. So as of right now, we're thinking it's going to be Trevion Henderson leading the way, and then Terrell Jennings there as well for the Patriots. Trevion 10,600, Terrell Jennings 3,600. Trevion project for 46 and 17 at captain. How much are you getting to of Trevion first?
Yeah, 45 at flex, 15 at captain. Very close to the field on that one. He clearly looks good. Like 10,600, I think, is a perfectly reasonable price tag. My assumption for right now is that Jennings is in, but that's not like I don't know anything. Like maybe he ends up being out. If Jennings is out, I do think you probably get a little bit higher projection on Henderson, just with the natural assumption that, Dearness Johnson is further down the depth chart than Jennings. So it's probably beneficial for Henderson. But at the same time, we did see Dearness Johnson on the field inside the 5 last week. So it's still a question really of like exactly how much of a workload will they give to Trevion Henderson, but clearly an explosive player. You saw him score 2 touchdowns last week the hard way, just housing them from the opposite side of the field, unable to get in on his goal line carries, didn't always get the goal line carries either. So there is still that uncertainty of like exactly what are the Patriots going to do around the goal line. You saw them throw a 1-yard touchdown to Diggs, I think after they had tried to get Henderson in and he couldn't get in. You had also the ridiculous Drake May just kneeling it on first down.
That was that same drive, I think.
Yeah. I think it was Drake May kneeled, and then Henderson got stuffed. Henderson got stuffed again, and then they threw
Yep.
it to Diggs on 4th. And then I think it was later in the game they had Dearness Johnson on the field inside the 5. I don't remember if he got a carry or not, but I remember he was definitely out there because it pissed me off. So you still have all of that, uncertainty of who's going to get goal line carries. You do have a running quarterback in Drake May. You do have, a big tight end in Hunter Henry that you can throw to around the goal line. But clearly Henderson's going to project well. If Jennings is out, I think Henderson projects a little bit better than he will if Jennings is in.
Yeah, I think that is true. I also think like Terrell Jennings, they specifically talked about using him at the goal line because he is bigger. So I guess this is on November 2nd, post-game presser, Mike Vrabel said, on what Terrell Jennings has done to earn enough trust to be used at the goal line and at the end of the game. He said he's run hard in 5 minutes. He's a physical back. These guys rotated most of the game, and Trevion helped us win, and so did Terrell, trying to get the ball to everybody in the rotation. Offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels wanted to go with some inside runs at the end, so we put a little bigger back in there. So I guess no, I can't remember exactly how big Dearness Johnson is. So I don't know if it would be the same if Jennings is out. But so some positive coach speak there from the perspective of if Jennings is in, he's maybe more likely to get some of those like 1-yard type rushes at the goal line because they trust him as the inside back there, which obviously does hurt Trevion a bit if that is
using
true.
Google height and weight. Dearness Johnson is 2 inches shorter and 10 pounds lighter.
Okay. I thought he was kind of a smaller back. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it would so Jennings seems kind of intriguing by that perspective. Project for just 2% flex ownership at 3,600. How much are you getting to of Jennings?
So I used higher ownership because I think that the ownership numbers right now are going to be weird because I'm pretty sure ETR doesn't even have Jennings projected in. So they're just going to be weird right now. But with 8% projected ownership at flex, I don't think I got to Jennings. Yeah, I got 1%. He's 3,600. I do think the ownership matters. If he actually does end up being projected for 2 or 3%, then he certainly becomes more interesting. Like you said, could have a goal line role. My assumption also, as far as the split goes, is that Henderson has earned more work because they did say going into last week that they wanted to get Henderson more work than he had the previous week. And the previous week, he actually had I think a little bit bigger role than people gave him credit for. Like if you were just kind of like box score watching from a fantasy standpoint, it seemed like it was more of a true split than I think it really was. And then they said they wanted to get him more work, and then you had, Jennings get hurt. So like my assumption is that you're still getting, even if Jennings is in, the clear bulk of the work going to Henderson. Again, he could get, vultured at the goal line. I have a 50% rushing market share projected for Henderson right now, 23% for Jennings. So like that is a spot where like you could reasonably disagree with that. If you think they're going to go back to something like, 44, 45% Henderson, 28, 29% Jennings, something like that, it would make Jennings, look that much better.
Yeah, it's funny looking at the week 9 game because 14 carries for Trevion Henderson to 11 for Terrell Jennings. Looks like a split, but 75% of the snaps for Trevion Henderson. Also 5 targets on 68% route participation. Jennings just 10%. So yeah, Trevion was the pretty clear lead back in week 9. And over the last 2 weeks overall, 79% snaps for Trevion Henderson, 28 carries, 6 targets on 70% route participation. So pretty good role there for Henderson. And again, I think that the Patriots should be able to run all over them, do whatever they want against this Jets defense. I could be wrong. Maybe they're better than I'm giving them credit for, but you'd think they should be pretty bad with a lot of their starters traded away or injured. Yeah, I guess Jennings, we'll have to see where the ownership comes in there if he's even active. Do you think if Jennings is out, do you think you'll have any interest in $2,400 Dearness Johnson?
I think a lot will depend on ownership, but I think he would be a very similar play. He basically, to me, I think he would just be like Jennings, like a slightly worse Jennings. Because like I said, I think you do give a little bit more work to Henderson if Jennings is out, but also Johnson is $1,200 or whatever less than Jennings. So I think it would be a very comparable thing where like if you do play him, you're basically hoping you get like the vultured touchdown probably. I mean, I guess in a perfect world, he just like houses a random carry, but outside of that, you're probably like hoping for the vultured touchdown. But the problem on this slate with going for that, on the one hand, it is the Jets. So like getting 6.5 fantasy points from Johnson/Jennings could certainly be better than like every player on the Jets. But you have so many cheap Jets, relatively inexpensive Jets receivers, and also Patriots, that it's just pretty likely that some receiver or two in this game get there and, outproduce 8 yards and a touchdown from a running back.
I guess it really comes down to who's active. Like if Jennings is active, I'll have no interest in Dearness Johnson. If it's like there's only 2 active backs on the Patriots and Dearness Johnson is one of them at 2,400, then I think you kind of have to have, I would have some interest there, but I also just love backup running backs on showdown slates. So that I'm kind of inclined to play them. And it also, like, as always, is going to depend on the ownership in that case. If he ends up being like 15% owned, suddenly I would not have much interest. But if he comes in at, 6%, I think I would want to be overweight on Dearness Johnson if Terrell Jennings is out, but that's a lot of unknowns at this point.
The other thing that I think does hurt the Patriots running back is how involved Henderson is as far as running routes goes.
Yeah.
You don't get, like Isaiah Davis. Yeah, he's clearly the backup to Breece Hall, but he is out there running routes on like 40 to 50% of dropbacks. Trevion Henderson is that guy for the Patriots. You're not getting any sort of real pass catching role for whoever his backup is.
Yeah, I think so. So agreed that is definitely a negative. The positive for the Patriots is just that they're more likely to have three score lead in the fourth quarter and just like, all right, we're just going to put in our backup running back at this point. And
I mean, from the blowout standpoint, like that applies to both teams because like Breece Hall is not playing a blowout either. Henderson's more likely to play a blowout than Breece Hall is, I think.
That is true. Yeah.
But just from a, going back to whatever game that Broncos, I think Bengals game, maybe you get the game where it's just a completely non-competitive game. The Jets don't show up and Drake May is just handing off for the entirety of the second half. And so it's not that they bench Henderson at that point. It's just that if you're going to carry the ball 15 times per drive, you're going to give 5 carries per drive to Dearness Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll have to wait and see, both with ownership and who's active at running back. But that's a spot that I anticipate I'll probably have some interest in whoever the RB2 is on the Patriots. I think we can move on to wide receivers. People might ask, would you play 2 running backs from the same team? The answer is almost always yes for me. Certainly is in this game, particularly for the Patriots. On the Jets, they're like sort of expensive together, but I still think I'd be like, wouldn't set a rule against it at least. Wide receivers, as mentioned, are a mess. We can start with the Jets, who are the bigger mess here. We have a lot of active wide receivers. As of right now, what can you do other than call them all active? We've got Isaiah Williams, Tyler Johnson, Alan Lazard, Arian Smith, Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie. So 6 active receivers here for the Jets. Hopefully one of them is inactive and we get a little bit of a clearer picture. As of right now, the most ownership looks like it's going to Tyler Johnson at 3,400, followed by Isaiah Williams and John Mechie. Adonai Mitchell and Arian Smith not getting a ton of ownership. I'm curious how you're playing the wide receivers on the Jets, Adam.
Yeah, so I think it's really tricky because a lot of them were kind of the same guy too, in
Yep.
terms of like their role. So if you look at like who's run the most outside wide receiver routes for the Jets this year, it's Garrett Wilson and it's Josh Reynolds. Obviously, they are both out. Beyond them, you just get a bunch of guys that run like 55 to 60% out wide and then like 45% in the slot, with Lazard, with Tyler Johnson, with Arian Smith, with John Mechie, and then you get Isaiah Williams as like the clear slot guy. Adonai Mitchell obviously hasn't played a game yet for the Jets. He was running like 85% out wide for the Colts this year. So I will be really curious, like when I projected this, and this is absolutely the spot that I'll end up tinkering with the most today. I threw like 15% to Adonai Mitchell as far as routes run, just because like he was inactive last week, but I went 60% to Lazard because like when Lazard's been active, he's played. He was inactive last week, but 79% route participation without Garrett Wilson in week 8, 56% in week 7. I went 60% to Arian Smith. I went 60% to Williams. The only guy that I went higher than 60% was Tyler Johnson, because we have seen him take on a bigger role, but even that hasn't, always been the case. But 84% the last game he played without Garrett Wilson, 63% last week. But Mitchell is just like a huge wild card here because of him being a guy that they can play out wide if he's active and if they want to. Like they don't have to though, because they can just go with Tyler Johnson as like your primary guy and then some outside routes for the other guys. So like there's no, I don't think, clear cut, oh, this is definitely what they're going to do. Like if like Lazard, Arian Smith, John Mechie were just all, and Isaiah Williams were just all like pure slot guys, then you could say with like a lot more confidence, oh, I think Adonai Mitchell is going to be active and I think he's going to run a lot of routes because he's like clearly the guy to step into the other outside wide receiver role. But that isn't really the case. Like he's probably a better fit than most of those other guys, but like they're fine using those other guys. So much of it just comes down to like what exactly do they think of AD Mitchell? Obviously they traded for him, so you assume that they have some level of interest. But is it, was last week he inactive just to learn the playbook, or is he inactive because they just kind of see him as a guy that they want to spend time with in the offseason and see if they can make him better or what? So hopefully we get some sort of inactive here to clear things up. But if we don't, I think it's a really big guessing game. So I would say to pay attention to ownership projections too, because like, let's say we don't get it inactive. Like I said, right now, my assumption is that Mitchell's behind Lazard, Smith, Williams, and Johnson in terms of routes, but he doesn't have to be. And let's say that that's like the industry consensus and he's just going to be 2% owned, then I'd be pretty interested in saying like, okay, well, if I'm just wrong, which I very easily could be, I get paid really, really well. Whereas, if the industry consensus is just like, oh, AD Mitchell is going to have a monster game, then I'd be fine saying like, okay, well, I think you're going to see a lot of Isaiah Williams. I think you're going to see a lot of Arian Smith. Also, like just thinking about the skill sets from a fantasy standpoint, AD Mitchell is the guy that like you would like to be able to make a case for because he actually earns targets historically and produces fantasy points. Whereas, you have, when you look at these guys on the Jets this year, and obviously part of this is, or a big part of this is Justin Fields. So like, you can't just say, oh, AD Mitchell got a bunch of targets when he was on the Colts. That's going to transfer over, 1-to-1 because we know how Justin Fields works. But, so far this season, Tyler Johnson, 0.11 targets per route run. Allen Lazard, 0.11 targets per route run. Arian Smith, 0.05 targets per route run. Again, a lot of that is just Justin Fields and this offense, but AD Mitchell is at 0.25 with the Colts. Like, even if you can just be like 0.17, 0.18, if he actually gets routes, that is just like a more appealing player than Lazard, Johnson, Smith, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, that it's going to be really ownership dependent, like because it is such a big unknown. Like if the field starts to have certainty one way or another and we don't get any kind of news or inactives, then I'm going to kind of play the opposite approach. As of right now, that means that I'm going to be playing a lot of Adonai Mitchell, because currently he's just projected for like 5% ownership all around the field, and I like the positive coach speak there. I'm just pulling up. I had not actually looked at the like slot and like the best matchups here. It looks like it's a positive matchup for Jets receivers against the Patriots. Of course, they have Justin Fields throwing them the ball. But so as of right now, we've got 5% projected ownership going to Adonai Mitchell, and that's kind of the consensus around the industry. Is pretty low. 5, I think that's actually like higher than I've seen a lot of places. So let me just read off some of the coach speak that we have on the recent additions to the Jets, or just what's been said recently about these active receivers. On November 5th, head coach Aaron Glenn said, Adonai Mitchell is big, fast, physical. He looks like a true X receiver. He can stretch the defense. On the 6th, offense coordinator Tanner Engstrand said, I really like AD Mitchell's size and his speed and his physical traits. John Mechie is a versatile player that has a lot of different things that you really like. He can get in and out of breaks, and he's got some speed. On the 7th, Aaron Glenn said, John Mechie is a really good slot receiver. Not saying he can't play outside, but he's a master when it comes to route concepts in the slot, being able to punch in and out of routes and being able to create separation with his quickness. AD Mitchell is a true X receiver. He is one that can win one-on-one battles, the slant, digs, go balls. One thing that I thought was interesting here was on the 10th, Aaron Glenn, that this is a note from Greg in the coach speaking next Discord, so it's not a direct quote, but he says, talking about the passing game, Glenn listed off impact receivers in this order: Garrett Wilson, AD Mitchell, John Mechie, Arian Smith. And then on newly acquired AD Mitchell being inactive yesterday, he said, we wanted to make sure that he was confident, and we were confident of not putting him in a position to go out there and make a mistake. I think with another week of learning our playbook, he'll be just fine. Who knows, like with one more week after being inactive because he didn't know the playbook, like are they going to put him out there as a full-time receiver, or is that like he's going to have a few plays that he knows? But I kind of like it if he is going to be low owned for all the reasons you gave. It's just like, I think he's a talented receiver. They need somebody to replace Garrett Wilson. He can kind of play the outside receiver role that Garrett Wilson has. So I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't have like a ton of confidence in it because he's a receiver on the Jets, but like,
right.
I think that at low ownership, he's pretty intriguing.
Well, and also thinking through it, just kind of as you were talking, I went ahead and like, even if for right now we assume all of the receivers are active, I did go ahead and bump up AD Mitchell, so he's in that same range with like Lazard and those guys in terms of route participation. Just because like it's the Jets, they're 2-100 or whatever they are.
Right.
Like, do they really need to run Allen Lazard 4 times as many routes as AD Mitchell because AD Mitchell might mess up a play? Like,
Right.
who gives a shit? I did kind of laugh when you were talking because you named the order that they listed their impact receivers. They didn't mention Tyler Johnson, who's the guy that they give routes ahead of all of the quote unquote impact receivers. So, I mean, it just goes back to like coaches say whatever.
Especially Aaron Glenn is not really forthcoming either. So I don't know. But
But
I think it's
yeah,
like the second one who comes to mind, at least, is like sort of promising to me because he did say Garrett Wilson first. So maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. To me, like the most promising stuff that you said was just that, again, they were harping on him being an outside receiver, which they don't really have outside of Garrett Wilson. So like, again, if he's up to speed, he is the most natural guy to step in for the Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds void that you have. So I do think that, like, at worst, I'll probably end up projecting somewhere around like 35-40% route participation. If you take like Lazard out, I think that would be, that's kind of the other thing too, is it's signal, right? Like, if you have questions about how much of the playbook AD Mitchell knows, how much he can be used, like, not saying that if Allen Lazard is inactive, it means 80% route participation for AD Mitchell, but it does at least somewhat signal like they're comfortable that AD Mitchell can be on the field.
Right.
whereas it kind of like, you get when you'll have like a questionable player, you have somebody that is dealing with injury, but then they make their backup inactive. You're like, okay, they think he's going to make it through the game. Like they're not super concerned about this guy.
Yeah, it's a good point. That would be some nice signal if we get Lazard out. Yeah, it's tough when if all 6 are active, it is going to be kind of a mess. You're going to have to be kind of guessing, but I think it'll bring the ownership down on all of them if all 6 are active. So just like try and guessing right would be beneficial potentially. Again, that is the other hard part is even if you guess right, if I like play AD Mitchell at 4% owned and he runs 100% of the routes, that doesn't mean he puts up any fantasy points. So there's a lot that has to go right regardless, but I at low ownership, I like AD Mitchell. The Patriots a bit cleaner. So we've got Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte is out. So really just 4 receivers to worry about on the Patriots. Diggs is 9,800, Hollins 5,800, Pop Douglas 6,200, and Kyle Williams 2,000. Starting with Diggs, he is projected for 38 and 10 at captain ownership. How much are you getting to of Diggs?
Yeah, I think he looks good here. I mean, obviously, Patriots likely to score a good number of points. Diggs is running, 75, 80% route participation typically. I'm getting to 35% at flex, 9% at captain. That actually makes him my second highest owned Patriots receiver, but he does look good. He's 9,800, so he is in a different pricing tier than the rest of them.
I'm just pulling up the last game because that was the only game we've had. I think it's the only game we've had without Kayshon Boutte, so we can see what the usage looked like. But in that game, 7 targets for Diggs, 72% route participation, kind of just in line with his normal role. Like he's going to be targeted pretty heavily. He's going to run somewhere around 70% of routes. I do think like this is a matchup where he could just absolutely smash against this Jets defense. I'm also extra paranoid because I'm playing against him in the eliminator, so I'm just expecting him to absolutely crush today. But I do think it's a nice matchup for Diggs. He looks good at his price tag. I assume that your highest owned Patriots receiver is Matt Collins, who was targeted 10 times on 81% route participation last week, and he is 5,800, getting 18% ownership. I would assume is that the ownership number that you're using?
So I used 23% at flex, 3% at captain. But yeah, he is the one that I'm getting a lot of right now. And this is like the Patriots are kind of the opposite of what I was just saying with the Jets, where like with the Jets, you have just like this whole bucket of receivers that kind of run the same routes, play the same positions. On the Patriots, you have a bigger difference. So like Kayshon Boutte is an outside receiver. Diggs can play outside, but they'll also use him in the slot. Pop Douglas is running the bulk of his routes in the slot. So when you take Kayshon Boutte out, you're going to get more Stephon Diggs outside than you were previously. But it also is like a direct, you can expect Matt Collins to play more, and you can expect Kyle Williams to play more, especially, again, last week they said, along with Travion Henderson, that they wanted to see more Kyle Williams. They ran him like 50, 55% route participation, I believe. So you saw Matt Collins get up to 80%, which is something that we had also seen in the past. It's not like that came completely out of nowhere. He ran 71% in week 8. He had been at 50 in week 9, like 50 to 60 in weeks 6 and 7. So you'd already been seeing a good number of routes for Hollins, and then he got the bump without Kayshon Boutte, and then you got Kyle Williams with the big bump as well. So on the one hand, I think there's the tendency to kind of look at a relatively elevated price tag for Matt Collins and just say like, yeah, okay, he had a big game last week, and now his price is up. So like that's an easy fade kind of thing. But he has a different role, and or not necessarily a different role, but like an enhanced role because of moving up the depth chart. But the other thing is like when you look at guys on the Patriots, as far as like earning targets go, Hollins is at 0.18 targets per route run this season. Last week he was 0.34. Obviously you're not expecting 10 targets, but in terms of Patriots receivers, that's pretty high. Like he earns targets as often as anybody other than Stephon Diggs. Like Kyle Williams is extremely low. He's at like 0.1 or something like that. So Hollins has been somebody that when he's on the field, he will get targets. Also last week, he did have at least one, I think more than one, like deep ball opportunities that he didn't catch. Like it could have been an even bigger game. So like, yeah, there is obviously the possibility of, yeah, Matt Collins is 5,800 and you play him and you feel stupid because he doesn't do anything and you paid 5,800 for Matt Collins. But clearly in a bigger role. And I think it's a relatively safe role as well, because like I don't know where those routes would go. Kyle Williams, I guess in theory, could just play more than Mac Hollins, but like there's no actual reason to expect that. Pop Douglas is a completely different receiver. Stephon Diggs is already playing his 75 to 80%. You're also, by the way, missing Austin Hooper, which opens up more slot routes for Diggs/Douglas. So I don't really know where the Mac Hollins routes go if they're not to Mac Hollins.
Yeah, I mean the role looks really good. To your point, he had 154 air yards last week, leading the team by pretty significant margin. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like if he were getting 45% ownership at 5,800, then I would be like, okay, I can fade that. But if he's not going to get over 30% ownership, like he's too cheap in a great matchup here. The role seems to be legit. So yeah, I think I am in on Mac Hollins. I would assume then the next receiver that you're the most interested in, I would assume is Kyle Williams, that because of the price tag at 2,000 as opposed to Demario Douglas, but I guess that's not a sure thing. What are you doing with the other receivers on the Patriots?
It's actually Pop Douglas.
Okay.
So I think Kyle Williams is fine. I only have 4% Kyle Williams right now. I would clearly like more. He's really cheap. I do think he's obviously underpriced for an elevated role, both in terms of, them saying they wanted him to be on the field more, and then obviously those routes being available for him. Like I was just saying, like behind Hollins, and then obviously whatever outside routes Diggs takes, there's not really anybody to get in Kyle Williams' way. The bigger issue is just talent level and ability to get open and earn targets, which against the Jets, maybe he doesn't have any issue doing, but he has, obviously had an issue doing that in general this year. Had the huge play last week, but all of his fantasy production came from that one play where it was just a simple crossing route and Drake May made a perfect throw. He was able to, catch it in stride, turn up field, and there was just nobody there. It's not like Kyle Williams did anything special on that play. So yeah, he's 2K. He's got a good quarterback. He's probably going to be on the field 50 to 60% of dropbacks. There's obviously a ceiling there. But so far this year, 0.11, or last week rather, still only 0.11 targets per route run for the season. He's in that same ballpark. So he is somebody where I think the ownership does matter a lot, because he projects as a good value at only $2,000. I think he'll be on the field a good amount. Have him projected for 20% ownership right now, though. That's, different price tier, but that's more ownership than Pop Douglas. It's similar to Hollins. Looking over at the Jets, it's more than every Jets receiver. So that's kind of, I think, the issue I'm running into with Kyle Williams is yes, I understand that he's a good point per dollar projection. He is underpriced. He should probably be 3,600, 4K, somewhere in there. But when you think about the volatility that comes with being a low target wide receiver, that can still just so easily be a 2 fantasy point game or anything like that. And I don't think his range of outcomes is really that different than guys on the Jets. Obviously it's different because he's on a better offense, but every receiver on the Jets, that you can say, well, I don't really know if I want to play that guy, he sucks. Kyle Williams so far this year has also sucked.
Have you considered that you might just be biased against rookies though?
Extremely biased against rookies.
Yeah, you fucking hate rookies for some reason. Name one rookie that you like. Do you like any rookies this year?
Egbuka. I drafted a good amount of Egbuka.
I figured there's got to be one of them somewhere. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I like Travion Henry. I don't like rookies where they get drafted in best ball.
Okay, all right, fine.
I like RJ Harvey. I like Travion Henderson. I don't like them as 4th round picks.
All right, fine. So Pop Douglas is such a tricky one for me, because look at the route participation here week over week. It's just 30.6% last week, 32.5% the week before. Week 6 he ran 41.9. I just looked up his game log. I was I feel like he's had a couple of really nice games. So over this span, weeks 6 through 10 is a 5-game span for Pop Douglas. In those games, I wrote this down, so let me read it. So 5 games, the past 5 games, he has 16 targets, so just over 3 targets per game on 32.8% route participation. However, he also has 2 games of 16 or more PPR fantasy points, including one where he got the 100-yard bonus and a touchdown, went completely off. So he's way too expensive for a guy getting targeted 3 times a game on 30% route participation, but he's been paying it off anyway. What are we doing with, and project for just 8% ownership as a result? What are you doing with Pop Douglas?
So I think he sees increased routes as a result of Austin Hooper being out.
Okay.
I assume you're just going to see less 2 tight end sets from the Patriots. So like on the one hand, you could, I guess, make that a Kyle Williams argument. Like, what if they run more Diggs in the slot, Henry in line, and then you have Williams and Hollins on the outside? Like, I guess you could make that case. My assumption is that you get more like Henry in line, you get a little bit more Diggs outside, Hollins obviously outside, and then you just go from like 30% to 40 or 45% route participation for Pop Douglas at relatively low ownership. He is somebody that actually gets targets. For the season, 0.26 targets per route run for Diggs is number 1 on the team. Pop Douglas 0.21, second most frequently targeted, on a per route basis wide receiver on the Patriots. So if he does get more routes, he is likely to turn those into targets, which I do like at relatively low ownership. But I agree with you. Like, he certainly could just not see a benefit in roll, and it just goes a different way. Like, maybe they just go Westover 30% routes and they keep Henry at 80 whatever percent, or again, maybe Kyle Williams sees a bigger bump on the outside or whatever. But I think there's a pretty good chance that you do see a bit more Pop Douglas here, and he has at least shown the ability to earn targets for the season. Looking at the tight ends for the Patriots, 42.5% slot route participation for Hunter Henry, only 7% for Hooper. So again, it's not that you're like directly replacing Hooper, but Hooper still runs a lot of routes. So like, my thought is that I'm sure you'll get plenty of like Westover blocking and Henry running from the slot, but also probably a little bit more like Henry just in line and then Douglas being on the field more.
Yeah, no, I think that's I had not considered the Austin Hooper angle, but that obviously makes a big difference. Austin Hooper, pretty involved. So yeah, that could end up being more Pop Douglas just as a result of over, because like it would make sense for them to want to use Pop Douglas more than they
Right.
have, just given how much of a target earner he is. Like, why are they not using him more? I think he actually also had some positive coach speak, but I can't remember if it was this week. I think it might have been a past week. So let me just see if I can find it real quickly. Yeah, it was on the 5th. I guess not much, but Vrabel said Pop Douglas has the same positive and workmanlike attitude every day, infectious energy. Everybody loves being around him. He's been reliable. He's created separation. So no like indication that they're going to use him more, but at least some positive coach speak. And on the 2nd, in the post-game presser, Mike Vrabel said, we got to keep finding Pop Douglas. When he doesn't have the ball, he's blocking and doing all the things we ask him to do to protect our identity. We have to continue to find him on some of these runaways or some of these slot plays that are really good for him. So sort of positive. I mean, they're thinking about wanting to use him more. So yeah, would make sense for them to use this as an opportunity to get him more involved. Any other notes on receivers?
No.
Just looking at the matchups here, it is a pretty. I don't know that we can read too much into the schedule adjusted stuff. It has been a slight negative matchup for receivers, but again, that's over the past 5 games. I think they've really gotten a lot worse over the past couple weeks. So I think it's a positive matchup for Patriots receivers. Also, might be wish casting a bit there in matchups against the Jets, but we'll have to see. Let's move on to tight ends. So starting with the Jet side, we have Mason Taylor is $4,000. Jeremy Ruckert, $600. Taylor projected to be fairly chalky, 30% projected flex and 1% captain ownership going to Mason Taylor. How much are you getting to?
A lot. So I projected 33% flex, 4% captain. I didn't hear what you had said.
Okay.
But I'm getting to very similar, 37% flex, 4% captain. He is a pass catcher for Justin Fields is the negative. He is playing on a team with 0 wide receivers is the positive. He's only 4K, also a positive, and all of his teammates suck, or most of his teammates suck, which again, you have to roster a Jet. You're not always gonna be able to afford Justin Fields and or Breece Hall. So why not Mason Taylor? You've definitely seen the production from him come and go, which you expect when you're playing with Justin Fields. Also, like, Justin Fields being somebody that does lock on to his first read, that is something that is generally going to hurt Mason Taylor when Garrett Wilson's out there. In theory, you should get Mason Taylor as the first read more often when you're talking about the group of wide receivers that the Jets have now. We didn't necessarily see that in the past when Garrett Wilson was out. I know that first game without Garrett Wilson, that was the popular thought was like, you're just going to see Mason Taylor get peppered. And I think maybe he showed up later in that game. I don't remember, but I think no.
that was my thought. That was like, nobody was on it. I was super into it, and it didn't happen at all. I was like, he's going to be peppered with targets. He's going to be targeted double-digit times. He didn't get targeted in the first half at all with Justin Fields. He started getting targeted after Justin Fields got hurt and Tyrod Taylor came in and started targeting him. Is what happened. Yeah. But then he did well against the Bengals the following game. So, but it was the Bengals.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a 4K pass catcher. Like, he could be the number one pass catcher here. He's the highest projected pass catcher. That, again, there's all kinds of volatility with that, but yeah, he looks good. I'm right around the field. I don't think that there's any like angle that the field is unaware of. Like, I think anybody playing tonight's slate that follows football at all knows that Mason Taylor is as likely as anyone to lead the team in receiving, and also that doesn't necessarily mean shit.
Yeah, and he's 4,000. But yeah, so I guess the ownership makes some sense. Might be in a lot of lineups as like the one jet you play is the $4,000. Mason Taylor allows you to spend up for the Patriots you want. You get into any Jeremy Ruckert?
I was looking to see what the Taylor lineups look like. Yeah, kind of just a mix of jet stuff paired with Taylor. As far as
Jeremy Ruckert
goes, I have like 1%. He's 600. I don't think you necessarily need the savings that much on this slate, because regardless of who it is that you decide to go to, whether it's Kyle Williams, whether it's a Jets receiver. That's what I forgot from the receivers. I have a lot of Isaiah Williams.
How much?
A lot. So with him projected at only 6% ownership, which again, this is driving a lot, but and also this was before I increased route participation for AD Mitchell. But I had like 50% Isaiah Williams, 55% Isaiah Williams. But again, that's pre AD Mitchell bump and with only a 6% ownership projection. But Williams has like the route participation for Williams has been good. 40+% in his first game of the year, 60% last week, running primarily from the slot. So I did want to mention that. But like, you have him at 1,200, you have Kyle Williams at 2K. That's also another reason probably why I'm not getting much Kyle Williams, if you're going to project Kyle Williams to be 3 to 4 times as popular. But you have those guys for cheap. You have even Matt Collins isn't expensive. The other Jets receivers are cheap. Mason Taylor's cheap. Like, I just don't know how often you need a $600 guy.
Apparently, Terrell Jennings expected to play, according to Ian Rappaport. It's good to note. Steven wants to know what captain you would play in cash or single entry medium field like the Spy.
I don't know, because I haven't built lineups for either one. My assumption is that you're going to want Drake May in cash.
Yeah. Or Trevian Henderson is one of those two.
Yeah. Like, I would. Yeah, it could be Henderson. I would guess it's May. Like, he projects so much better than anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like the Spy goes, there's never like a right answer. Probably Drake May or Trevian Henderson or Justin Fields.
Yeah. All right. You get into any other Jets tight ends? Andrew Beck?
No.
Okay. Defenses and kickers. We have Nick Folk, 4,600, projected for 21%. Jets defense is just 3,200, projected for 22%. Andy Borregales, 5,000, projected, 37% and 2% of captain. And then Patriots defense up at 6,600, projected for 24% flex and 2% captain ownership. How much are you getting to of these kickers and defenses?
Not much, which sucks, but this is what I was referring to at the top of the show. Like, if this game just kind of goes how everybody expects it to, like, yeah, it's a kickers and defense game. It's Thursday Night Football. The Jets have like a 15 implied total. The Patriots, team total is high, but when you're essentially removing, in terms of like guys you want to play, you're removing almost an entire team in the Jets. You're just going to land on kickers and defenses and all of that. but you still get like a lot of volatility from shitty, cheap wide receivers that can make big plays potentially.
Yeah.
So a lot of this just comes down to ownership. But with that 25% ownership projection on the Patriots defense, I only have 10% of them. I only have 2% of the Jets. I only have 4% of the Patriots kicker. I'm not getting to Nick Folk. And I'm just taking, more shots at the cheap wide receivers and hoping something breaks free. If ownership does change and ownership on kickers and defenses comes down and, comes up from 6% on Isaiah Williams, for example, then yeah, I'm going to get to more kickers and defenses. It's not that I think there's some like special reason that they're a bad play.
Right.
They're not, like, especially, on the Patriots side. It's just a matter of like, okay, if everybody's going to want to play kicker and defense over spreading it out and taking shots at wide receivers, I'll go ahead and take the wide receivers.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just given the price tags are like more expensive than the receivers and tight ends, like across the board, other than the Jets defense, which like it's intriguing at 3,200, but getting 22% ownership then becomes less. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. Maybe ownership shifts and we'll play more of them later. But as of right now, makes sense to not get to a ton.
Yeah. And it's kind of just like the bucket thing that I've talked about before too, where like from a medium projection standpoint, yeah, none of the Jets receivers project well. And there's a real chance that like actually none of them do well because they're Jets receivers. But at the same time, like if you're playing 20, 50, 150, whatever, playing multiple lineups, I just prefer the idea of understanding how much volatility there is at wide receiver and saying like, all right, there's a pretty good chance that something out of Isaiah Williams, Alan Lazard, Arian Smith, AD Mitchell, Kyle Williams on the other side, like all these guys, Tyler Johnson, that are thousands of dollars less expensive than your kicker and your defense happen to step up. Like you're going to project. The only real way I think to project like the Jets receivers, for example, is very flat where they all are just involved and nobody is the guy. But in terms of actual production, there's a good chance somebody ends up just having a good game and being the guy, even if it's not that they run 80% of routes. Like somebody will just overperform on their 60% of routes and hopefully beat a kicker or a defense. And then you also get the negative correlation standpoint of like, if AD Mitchell catches a 60-yard touchdown, the defense also gave up a touchdown. So, it's kind of just like, there's no one cheap wide receiver that I would rather play than the defense or the kicker. But if they're all going to be relatively low owned, then I can just like pick and choose from these 5 or 6 guys that all have a lot of volatility, then I'll probably just do that.
Yeah, just like bump all of them up and bump the defense down because the defense is chalkier. Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else on this slate?
No. Good slate if you're using Run the Sims again to make your own assumptions. Like I do think it's a slate where like, I've said it a lot of times, like I'm not somebody that really puts my thumb on the scale. Like as long as I am good with the inputs that I put in, I'll play whatever I get. This is definitely a slate where like if you're getting, a ton of Tyler Johnson and no AD Mitchell and you want to be split, like I would go out of my way to move stuff around and like get to what you want because the margins between all of these guys are so small.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Actually, one more question. Can you pull up your lineups real quick? Because I haven't run any Sims. I'm just curious, how much salary are you typically leaving on the table with those top lineups? Because this reads to me as a slate where you might leave a lot of salary on the table in some lineups, but
yeah,
also
there's some that are leaving like 2,500 to 3K. There's some that are not. Like there are some, between 49 and 50. But yeah, here's like a 46-7 one that, it's not good, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
It's Justin Fields captain. It has May. It has Henderson. So it's not like, I'm just playing horrible plays or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I was my first instinct was this is probably a slate where you can leave a lot of salary because there are so many like good value options. But then I was like, but also I want Drake May in every lineup probably, and he's 12,000, and if he's a captain, he's 18,000. And then I also want Trevion Henderson in almost every lineup. So yeah, it starts becoming a little bit more difficult once you factor in like there are actually some pretty strong pay ups also. So yeah, I think it makes sense that you're getting kind of a wide range of salary spent.
Yeah, like. And the ones where I'm paying down, like they do make sense. At least the ones that I've seen, where like, I'm leaving 3K on the table, but like I'm looking at one right now where it has Trevion Henderson at captain, it has Drake May, it has Justin Fields in a double stack. So like it's just if those are the two receivers, you know, whoever he's paired with that happen to have a good game, then that's obviously what I would want. Like there's no need to like play Tyler Johnson instead of Isaiah Williams just because he's more expensive. Like nobody knows the pricing for the Jets receivers in particular. I do not think correlates with fantasy production very strongly.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything else outside of the site? Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right. Well, then we will get out of here. Again, you can use promo code Neil to get 50% off your first payment on any NFL product at Run the Sims if you want to check it out. Please do like the video if you have not already done so. Very helpful. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season. Could use your support. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back again tonight after inactives come out to break the game down again with a little bit more information than we have right now, hopefully. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks.